She braced for death from the human, but what came was unexpected pleasure. Its hull, dark and angular, reflected the faint glow of distant stars, and small sparks of failing lights flickered along its corridors. Inside, Lyrana moved with a steady grace, her every motion precise, her eyes sharp and alert. Her species had trained her for one thing above all else: survival in combat. Every encounter, every mission, had drilled into her the knowledge that the touch of a human was almost always deadly. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft hum of the ship's failing systems. Lyrana's long fingers brushed over a console, running a quick scan. Nothing seemed to stabilize. She frowned, feeling the familiar tension tighten around her chest. Somewhere in the galaxy, a human was approaching. Not just any human. The stories whispered across alien sectors spoke of him as Captain Jason Holt, a Terran known for his unmatched skill in missions that were considered impossible. Aliens like her had prepared for combat, for lethal confrontation, and yet this human had a reputation that instilled a different kind of fear. A fear not of death itself, but of being outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and shown how fragile her confidence could be. The sound of the docking clamps engaging echoed softly through the ship. Lyrana's sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement outside the viewports. She braced herself instinctively, fingers hovering near the control panels, ready for an attack. Every muscle in her body tensed as the airlock opened with a hiss, revealing the human standing calmly in the doorway. He did not carry weapons. His posture was relaxed, almost casual. Lyrana's brow furrowed. That should have been impossible. No human would approach an elite alien warrior unarmed. Yet here he stood, his eyes scanning her with curiosity rather than hostility. For the first time in her life, Lyrana felt uncertainty creep in. She had prepared for the worst, but this calm and unassuming demeanor was something she had not anticipated. "Good day," the human said, his voice steady, carrying no hint of aggression. "I see your systems are failing. I can help." Lyrana blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Her species valued directness, skill, and strength, not casual offers from an enemy. But the human did not move closer. He simply stood at the airlock, observing. Her instincts screamed at her to strike, to ensure her own survival. But the urge to act, to test the human's intentions, wavered. "I cannot allow you access," Lyrana said finally, her voice controlled but with an undercurrent of curiosity. "Your reputation suggests you will attempt to kill me." The human smiled faintly. "Reputation is often exaggerated. I am more interested in keeping you alive than harming you." Lyrana felt a twitch of surprise. Keeping her alive. That was an alien concept, almost unfathomable to her. Yet there was something about his calm tone, the confidence not rooted in threat, that made her hesitate. She stepped back, her gaze sharp and unyielding, but curiosity sparked in her mind. Could this human really be different? Could someone who carried the weight of Terran renown actually value life over destruction? "I will observe," she said finally, more to herself than to him. "Show me your skill, human, if you truly wish to enter." Jason stepped forward, not aggressively, but with purpose. He moved toward a panel that had been flickering for hours, his hands deftly working over controls and cables. Lyrana watched, her brow furrowed. She did not understand what he was doing at first. The machinery was complex, designed in a way that her species considered advanced beyond repair without specialized tools. Yet the human moved with ease, adjusting circuits, tapping into systems with methods she had never seen before. He was not using brute strength. There were no lasers, no forceful strikes, only careful, precise movements. Hours seemed to pass as she watched him work. The flickering lights steadied, systems stabilized, and the hum of life support returned to a normal rhythm. Lyrana found herself leaning slightly closer, compelled by a mixture of caution and fascination. The human's hands moved with skill, but it was not just the skill that captivated her. It was the patience, the attention to detail, and the way he seemed to anticipate problems before they arose. Each adjustment, each subtle correction had an effect she could see but had never learned to execute herself. "Your methods are unusual," she said finally, unable to contain her voice. "Aliens would have attempted brute force. You repair with precision. You do not attack." Jason looked up, his eyes meeting hers. Humans believe there is more strength in understanding than in destruction. Often, the most dangerous approach is to preserve life, to use your knowledge to prevent failure rather than to dominate. Lyrana's eyes widened. Preserve life. Knowledge to prevent failure. These were concepts alien to her warrior training, concepts that had been dismissed in favor of speed, strength, and survival at all costs. Yet here, in front of her, was living proof that this human thrived on them. She felt a strange, unfamiliar stirring in her chest, a sensation that was not fear, not anticipation of death, but something closer to respect. Intrigue. The beginnings of pleasure in observation, in learning, in understanding a method she had never known. A sudden alarm startled her, lights flashing along the panels. She stiffened, instinctively readying herself for combat. But Jason moved with calm authority, adjusting the reactor's energy flow with deft hands. "Stay calm," he said. "We can manage this together." There is no need for fear. The reactor began to stabilize. Lyrana felt the tension drain from her shoulders, replaced by a sense of exhilaration she had never experienced during battle. She was not facing death. She was facing a challenge, and she was learning, and the human, this strange creature from Terran space, was guiding her through it. "You are not what I expected," Lyrana said, her voice quieter now. "I expected death or domination." Instead, she hesitated, unsure how to describe the sensation building inside her. It was not fear, not anger, but a sharp, exhilarating pleasure, like the thrill of mastering a system she had always considered beyond reach. Jason nodded, a small smile on his face. Understanding can be just as powerful as combat. Often it is even more rewarding. For the next several hours, Lyrana observed and assisted. Jason did not lecture. He demonstrated. Each correction he made, each subtle adjustment, taught her something new about the alien system she had taken for granted. She realized that her entire training had focused on survival through combat, yet here was a path to mastery that did not rely on confrontation. It relied on observation, patience, and ingenuity, and the satisfaction she felt as she learned, as she contributed, was intoxicating. As the systems finally hummed in harmony, Lyrana stepped back, breathing steadily. The ship, once silent and failing, was alive again. Lights glowed steadily along the corridors, and the hum of engines suggested life where there had only been decay. She looked at the human, feeling a sense of gratitude that her species would not have understood. "You have changed my perspective," she admitted. "I expected a fight, a demonstration of your strength. Instead, you have shown me something different, something I did not know I could feel." Jason nodded, understanding her meaning without needing further words. "Strength comes in many forms," he said softly. "Sometimes it is found in knowledge, in patience, in guiding others. And sometimes the greatest victories are those where no one dies." Lyrana felt a smile tug at her lips, unbidden. She had braced herself for the death from a human, expecting fear, struggle, perhaps pain. Instead, what came was something entirely unexpected: pleasure. Not in the way her species might have described it, but in the way of enlightenment, mastery, and understanding. She felt alive, more alive than she had ever felt during any battle, any mission, any duel. For the first time, Lyrana wondered if perhaps humans were not merely survivors. Perhaps they were teachers, guides, creatures capable of drawing out the best in others without force, without intimidation. And in that moment, she felt the stirrings of curiosity, not just about the systems they had repaired together, but about the human himself, and what other lessons he might hold. The night stretched on, and the stars outside the viewport twinkled quietly. Lyrana stood by the console, watching Jason make small adjustments to the systems, ensuring everything was stable. She did not feel fear, suspicion, or tension. She felt something she had never experienced, a deep, simmering anticipation for what could come next, a pleasure rooted not in conquest, but in the unexpected discovery that life, knowledge, and collaboration could be far more exhilarating than any duel. And as the derelict ship drifted through the void, Lyrana realized she had been changed. The human had not struck a blow. He had not taken her life. But in showing her the power of understanding, patience, and ingenuity, he had given her something far more valuable, a new perspective, and a taste of the unexpected pleasures of life itself. The ship now hummed steadily, its systems no longer faltering, yet Lyrana remained near. The control console, her eyes fixed on the human moving with quiet confidence. Captain Jason Holt worked efficiently, his hands dancing over panels, adjusting readings, and fine-tuning the systems that had seemed beyond repair. She could not take her eyes off him. It was not fear that held her gaze, it was fascination, and something she had never felt before, admiration. She had braced herself for a deadly confrontation, expecting the human to attack at any moment. Yet here he was, completely calm, his energy focused entirely on understanding and fixing the alien ship. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Lyrana felt a strange warmth spread across her chest. A warrior trained for battle, she was discovering a new kind of thrill, the pleasure of learning, of understanding, of seeing systems come alive under careful hands. "You seem surprised," Jason said, glancing at her briefly. "Most aliens would assume I am here to fight. But I do not see value in unnecessary violence." "I expected your kind to attack immediately," Lyrana admitted, her voice low. "I thought death would come quickly and I would meet it honorably." Jason shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "Death may come eventually, but that is not the purpose of life. Surviving, learning, discovering, those are the true challenges. Life is more rewarding when it is preserved, and the knowledge you gain from saving it is far greater than the fleeting thrill of ending it." Lyrana frowned slightly. It was strange to hear such words. Her species valued strength and dominance above all else. To hear someone speak of reward in preservation rather than conquest unsettled her. And yet, she felt a spark of something she could not name. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was respect, but it was undeniable. The human had introduced her to a perspective she had never considered, and it excited her. She moved closer, her eyes scanning the panels as Jason explained the modifications he had made. He had rerouted power, recalibrated delicate sensors, and stabilized the ship's propulsion system. Each adjustment was deliberate, precise, and surprisingly elegant. Lyrana had worked on alien ships for years, yet she realized she had never approached them with such finesse. Her usual method involved brute strength, sheer effort, and reliance on tools designed to overpower the system rather than understand it. Watching him work, she began to see how much she had missed. "Your methods are unusual," she said, her tone almost hesitant. "Aliens typically rely on strength and dominance. You rely on patience and thought." Jason nodded. "Understanding is the foundation of strength. When you know how a system works, you can guide it, influence it, and prevent failure before it happens. Strength without understanding is limited, and it often leads to unnecessary loss." Lyrana's eyes widened. The idea was foreign to her. Strength in her world meant victory, survival, and respect. Yet the human was teaching her that there was another kind of power, one that came from knowledge, patience, and careful observation. The realization sent a thrill through her, a pleasure rooted not in combat but in comprehension. "You speak as though life itself is a challenge," she said, leaning closer to study the delicate interface he was adjusting. "And yet you face it without fear." "Fear exists," Jason admitted, but it is a tool, not a master. It warns us, prepares us, but it should not control our actions. We act not because we are fearless, but because we choose to face challenges with understanding. Lyrana absorbed his words, feeling a strange excitement build within her. She had always approached challenges as threats, opportunities to prove her strength. Now she saw that there was another path, one that was rewarding in ways she had never imagined. She felt a rush of exhilaration at the thought of mastering systems, solving problems, and navigating dangers without resorting to combat. The ship's corridors echoed softly as they moved through them together. Jason guided her hands over control panels, showing her how minor adjustments could prevent major failures. He explained the reasoning behind each decision, teaching her to anticipate problems rather than react to them. Lyrana found herself fully engaged, her mind alert and sharp, absorbing information at a pace she had never experienced. The pleasure she felt was undeniable, the thrill of learning, the satisfaction of understanding, the joy of seeing the results of careful thought take effect. Hours passed, yet neither seemed to notice. Lyrana's focus was complete, her usual tension replaced by a deep sense of engagement. She realized that she had never felt such fulfillment during battle. The rush of combat, the satisfaction of victory, the fear of death, those were fleeting, shallow pleasures compared to this. Here, she was alive in a way that transcended survival. She was learning, growing, and discovering, and it exhilarated her. Jason paused for a moment, observing her with quiet amusement. "You are doing well," he said. "Your instincts are strong, but you are also capable of learning. Combining instinct with understanding makes you far more effective than relying on either alone." Lyrana's chest rose with a small laugh, a sound she rarely allowed herself. "You speak in riddles," she said, though her tone was light, almost playful. "But I think I understand. It is strange. I expected fear, danger, even death. Instead, I feel something else." "Pleasure," Jason said simply. "The pleasure of knowledge, of mastery, of discovering your own capabilities. It is far more lasting than the thrill of combat." Lyrana considered his words carefully. She had never thought of pleasure in such a way. To her, it had always been tied to conquest, victory, and survival. Yet here it was, an intellectual and emotional delight, the joy of understanding, the satisfaction of competence, the thrill of overcoming challenges without causing harm. She felt a deep, warm sensation spread through her body, a sense of excitement she could not name. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced, and she welcomed it. Their work continued through the ship. Jason guided her through intricate systems, teaching her how to balance energy flows, optimize sensors, and stabilize navigation. Each success brought a new wave of exhilaration. Lyrana felt her confidence grow, not in her ability to fight, but in her ability to understand, adapt, and master. She was learning to trust herself, her mind, and her instincts in a way that did not rely on violence. At one point, a minor alarm flashed across the console, signaling a potential failure in the ship's propulsion system. Lyrana's first instinct was to tense, ready for action, but Jason's calm presence reminded her to observe first, understand second. Following his guidance, she identified the issue and implemented a solution. The system stabilized, and she felt a rush of satisfaction unlike any she had known. She had faced a challenge, mastered it, and lived to enjoy the result. And she realized with a sense of awe that the pleasure she felt came not from survival alone, but from the act of learning itself. "You are learning quickly," Jason said, glancing at her with approval. "Humans thrive on challenges, and so do you. The key is to see opportunity in obstacles, to enjoy the process as much as the outcome." Lyrana nodded, absorbing the lesson. She had spent her life training for survival, for combat, for mastery through force. Now she understood that mastery could come through observation, thought, and collaboration. The realization was exhilarating. She felt a sense of pleasure that was deep and enduring, unlike the fleeting adrenaline of battle. Hours turned into cycles as they moved through the ship, repairing systems and optimizing functions. Lyrana found herself laughing quietly at small successes, marveling at the elegance of the human's methods, and feeling a deep connection to the process of learning. She realized that she had been trapped in a narrow view of existence, seeing life as a series of threats and challenges to be conquered. Jason had shown her another way, a path that was rich, rewarding, and filled with unexpected pleasure. By the time the ship systems were fully stabilized, Lyrana felt transformed. She no longer braced herself for death. She no longer viewed the human as a threat. Instead, she felt gratitude, curiosity, and a profound sense of exhilaration. She had faced the unknown and emerged not just unscathed, but enriched, filled with a pleasure she had never anticipated. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice carrying a sincerity that surprised even her. "I expected danger, confrontation, perhaps death. Instead, I have learned, I have grown, and I have experienced something I never thought possible." Jason nodded, his expression calm and reassuring. "Life has much to teach if we are willing to observe and learn. Strength is not always measured in combat. Sometimes it is measured in understanding, patience, and the ability to grow." Lyrana looked around the ship, at the stabilized systems and the quiet hum of energy flowing through the corridors. For the first time, she felt truly alive. The thrill was not from fighting, not from fear, not from dominance. It was from learning, from discovery, from the joy of mastering a challenge with guidance and understanding. And in that realization, she found an unexpected pleasure that filled her completely. As she stood beside the human, observing the ship that had once been on the brink of failure, she realized that her perspective had changed forever. Humans were not merely survivors. They were teachers, innovators, and guides, capable of drawing out the best in others without force, without intimidation, without death. And she had experienced the first taste of that extraordinary gift. The stars outside the viewport shone quietly, indifferent to the transformations happening inside the ship. Lyrana took a deep breath, savoring the feeling of accomplishment and exhilaration. She had braced for death from the human, expecting pain and fear. Instead, what came was something entirely unexpected, a profound, enduring pleasure born of understanding, growth, and the joy of life itself. And for the first time, Lyrana wondered what other lessons the human might teach her, and how far this new path could take her. She had learned that life could be thrilling, challenging, and rewarding in ways she had never imagined, and the pleasure she felt now was only the beginning. The ship had changed, but Lyrana had changed more. She stood in the central corridor, watching soft light move along the walls as systems adjusted themselves automatically. The vessel no longer felt like a broken relic drifting toward quiet failure. It felt alive, responsive, almost welcoming. And somehow that feeling echoed inside her. Jason worked a few steps away, checking long-term stability reports. He moved slower now, not because he was tired, but because there was no rush. For the first time since they had met, there was no emergency pressing against the clock. The danger had passed. The silence between them was not tense. It was comfortable. Lyrana realized she had never known this kind of quiet. Her entire life had been shaped by preparation. Preparation for combat, preparation for loss, preparation for death. Silence to her people was something that came before an attack or after a defeat, but this silence was different. It was full, not empty. It held the soft hum of systems working properly, the gentle vibration of a ship that wanted to keep going. She took a slow breath and let herself feel it. "This ship," she said carefully, breaking the silence, "it feels different." Jason looked up. "Because now it's being understood instead of forced." Lyrana considered that. "We were trained to control systems, to dominate them." Jason nodded. "Humans tried that once too. It didn't go well. Things break when you treat them like enemies. She looked at him, studying his face. Humans were physically unimpressive compared to many species she had fought beside or against. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no built-in weapons, and yet she was beginning to understand why humans were feared across sectors. They did not rely on force. They relied on awareness. Jason gestured for her to follow him. They moved deeper into the ship toward areas Lyrana had avoided, old research bays, sealed observation rooms, places where her people's scanners had failed to make sense of ancient alien systems. These sections were unstable before, she said. We marked them as unusable. Jason smiled slightly. Let's take another look. They entered a large chamber filled with curved interfaces and translucent panels. Dim symbols shifted slowly, responding to their presence. Lyrana felt a familiar tension rise, but it was softer now, less sharp. Jason did not touch anything immediately. He stood still, watching patterns form and fade. "What are you waiting for?" Lyrana asked. "For the system to tell us what it wants to do," he replied. She frowned. "Machines do not want." "They do," Jason said gently. "Just not the way living beings do. They want balance. Predictability, clear inputs." He nodded toward a console. "Go ahead." Lyrana hesitated. Then she placed her hand on the surface. Instead of forcing commands, she did what Jason had taught her. She observed. She waited. She followed the system's rhythm. The panels shifted, opening new layers of information. Her breath caught. Data flowed across the display: star maps, energy equations, research logs written in alien scripts older than her civilization. This ship had not been a weapon. It had been a library, a place of study. "They were explorers," Lyrana whispered. Jason nodded. "Looks that way." Something stirred inside her, a strange ache mixed with excitement. Her people revered warriors. These beings had revered knowledge. She felt a sudden connection across time. As they worked through the chamber, Jason let Lyrana take the lead. He corrected only when necessary. When she made a mistake, the system responded gently, guiding her back rather than punishing her. Each success filled her with warmth, not pride, fulfillment. "This feeling," she said quietly, "is stronger than victory in combat." Jason glanced at her. "That's because it lasts." They uncovered more chambers, more information. The ship revealed itself piece by piece, like a puzzle eager to be solved. Lyrana found herself smiling often, something she rarely did even among her own kind. At one point, a deep-core diagnostic triggered an alert. The ship adjusted course slightly, correcting for a minor instability. Lyrana's heart jumped, but she did not freeze. She analyzed. She adjusted. She stabilized the system. Jason did not intervene. When the alert faded, she realized her hands were steady. She laughed, a soft sound filled with surprise. "I would have panicked before," she said. "But you didn't," Jason replied. She felt a wave of pleasure wash through her, not physical, not dangerous, but powerful. The pleasure of competence, of growth, of becoming more than what she had been shaped to be. Later, they stood by a wide viewport. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. "My people believe humans are dangerous because they are unpredictable," Lyrana said. Jason crossed his arms. "That's fair. But now I see something else," she continued. "You adapt. You listen. You change yourselves when the world changes." "That's how we survived," he said. "We weren't the strongest. We just learned faster." She turned toward him. "You do not fear being lesser." Jason shook his head. "Being lesser just means there's room to grow." That sentence settled into her mind like a seed. As time passed, Lyrana noticed something else. Jason never positioned himself above her, never acted as if he owned the knowledge he shared. He treated learning as something meant to be passed on. Her people hoarded strength. Humans multiplied it. She thought of her training halls, of endless drills meant to harden the body and silence the mind. For the first time, she wondered what her people had lost by narrowing their focus so completely. The ship completed a full stability cycle. Systems adjusted smoothly. No alarms. No stress indicators. Lyrana felt an unexpected sadness. "This will end," she said quietly. Jason looked at her. "Everything does," she nodded. "But I am no longer afraid of that." They returned to the central chamber. Lyrana activated a summary display, reading results with ease she never would have believed possible days earlier. She had changed, not because the human had forced her, but because he had trusted her. "Jason," she said, using his name for the first time, "why did you come alone?" He considered the question. "Because first contact doesn't need an army, it needs patience." She felt warmth at that. If another species had sent warriors, she would have responded in kind. The cycle would have continued. Instead, a single human had arrived with empty hands and an open mind. She realized then that the pleasure she felt was not just learning. It was freedom. Freedom from fear, from constant readiness, from the belief that existence was a battlefield. She looked at the ship one last time, then at Jason. "When you leave," she said, "I will not be the same." "That's the point," he replied. Outside, the stars continued their endless motion. Inside, something new had begun. Lyrana no longer braced for death from the human. She welcomed the future he had shown her, a future where strength meant understanding, where pleasure came from growth, and where life was not something to survive, but something to explore. And she knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. The alien ship now moved smoothly through the void, its systems fully restored and humming with life. Lyrana walked through the corridors beside Captain Jason Holt, feeling a calm she had never experienced before. The usual tension of her warrior training, the constant vigilance, the expectation of danger, was gone. She had faced the human, expecting death, and yet she had discovered something entirely different, a sense of mastery, understanding, and pleasure in life itself. The quiet hum of the engines and the soft glow of the ship's lights created a serene atmosphere. Lyrana could hardly believe how much had changed in so short a time. She glanced at Jason, who moved confidently through the corridors, his hands occasionally adjusting minor systems or checking instruments. He did not rush. He did not demand obedience. He simply worked and he taught, allowing her to follow and learn. The thought that humans could achieve so much without dominating or controlling others filled her with awe. "You have changed this ship completely," Lyrana said, her voice soft. "It was dying. Now it is alive." Jason smiled, a small, easy expression that seemed natural and unforced. "Ships, like people, need guidance and understanding. Neglect leads to failure. Care and attention lead to life and function. That applies to many things, not just machinery." Lyrana considered his words carefully. The human had not only repaired the ship but also transformed her thinking. She had learned patience, observation, and how to take pleasure in understanding and mastering systems rather than relying on brute force. And more than that, she had learned that life itself could be thrilling in ways that did not involve combat or survival. They entered the ship's main observation deck, the largest chamber in the vessel. It overlooked the endless expanse of stars, distant suns casting light across the dark void. Lyrana stepped closer to the viewport, feeling the serenity of space in a way she had never allowed herself to notice. The stars seemed brighter, more alive. Her mind, which had once focused solely on strategy, combat, and survival, now saw patterns, beauty, and potential. Jason followed her, his gaze moving from the instruments to the stars beyond. Space is quiet, yet it holds many challenges. Those who navigate it must understand, adapt, and respect it. Those who try to dominate it often fail. Lyrana nodded. She had experienced this lesson firsthand. Her species had trained her for dominance and strength, but in navigating the ship with Jason, she had realized that understanding and collaboration brought far greater rewards. She could feel the unexpected pleasure of this realization coursing through her, a joy that was not fleeting but deep and enduring. "We could explore the sectors nearby," Jason suggested, his tone light but purposeful. There is knowledge to uncover, systems to study, and opportunities to learn. You may discover things your species has never imagined. Lyrana turned to him, a spark of excitement in her eyes. I would like that. I want to learn. I want to understand. Then we will, Jason said simply. Learning is the path to strength, but also to happiness. You may find that the greatest reward is not what you gain, but what you discover about yourself along the way. For the next several hours, they moved through the ship, accessing archives, scanning unknown systems, and analyzing data. Jason guided Lyrana through complex calculations and delicate adjustments, explaining concepts with patience and clarity. She absorbed the lessons eagerly, marveling at the depth of knowledge he possessed and the skill with which he shared it. Every new discovery brought a surge of excitement, a pleasure unlike any thrill she had known in battle. At one point, they accessed a chamber filled with ancient alien records. The information was dense and intricate, containing histories, technological schematics, and observations from civilizations long gone. Lyrana's eyes widened as she scanned the records, realizing that she had only scratched the surface of knowledge her species had never fully explored. Jason pointed to a section of the records. See this? These methods were lost because no one understood how to apply them. Knowledge without comprehension is like a ship without power. The potential exists, but it is useless until someone learns how to use it. Lyrana leaned closer, her fingers tracing the symbols and diagrams. She felt a deep thrill, a pleasure that was entirely intellectual, born from understanding, mastery, and the excitement of discovery. She realized that she had underestimated herself, and that the human had helped her unlock potential she had never known existed. As they worked, they encountered minor malfunctions in the ship systems, which required delicate adjustments. Lyrana approached each problem with care, following Jason's guidance while applying her own instincts. The satisfaction she felt with every success was overwhelming. She had faced challenges before, but the joy of solving them without fear of death or domination was entirely new. You are learning quickly, Jason said, glancing at her. Your instincts are strong, but now you are combining them with understanding. That combination is rare, and it makes you capable of achieving much more than you realize. Lyrana felt a swell of pride and pleasure. She had expected to face a human who would test her strength, perhaps take her life, and force her to prove her skill. Instead, she had discovered a path to mastery that relied on intellect, patience, and cooperation. The pleasure of learning, of achieving success through understanding, was far greater than any thrill she had known in combat. Hours passed like minutes. Lyrana and Jason worked side by side, exploring every corner of the alien ship, analyzing data and improving systems. Lyrana's mind was sharp, alert, and fully engaged. She realized that her perception of strength had changed. Strength was not just the ability to fight or survive. It was the ability to learn, adapt, and thrive. And she felt a deep, lasting pleasure in embracing that truth. As they finished their work, the ship was fully restored, its systems optimized and functioning better than they had in years. Lyrana took a step back, surveying the vessel with a sense of accomplishment. The quiet hum of energy, the smooth operation of engines, and the calm stability of the ship brought a profound satisfaction. She turned to Jason, her expression reflecting gratitude and awe. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You have shown me a way of being I never imagined. I expected confrontation, danger, perhaps death. Instead, I have discovered something far greater. I feel alive more than I ever have before." Jason smiled, his eyes warm and understanding. Life is full of lessons. Sometimes the greatest challenges are those that teach us not to fight, but to understand. You have embraced that lesson, and in doing so, you have discovered strength and pleasure that were always within you. Lyrana felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had faced the unknown and emerged not only unscathed but transformed. The human had not only repaired the ship, but had also guided her toward a new understanding of life, strength, and pleasure. She felt a joy that was profound and enduring, a pleasure that came from mastery, learning, and the discovery of her own potential. As the ship drifted through space, Lyrana walked to the observation deck, gazing at the stars. She had braced herself for death from the human, expecting fear, pain, and struggle. Instead, she had experienced a pleasure she had never known, a pleasure rooted in understanding, mastery, and the joy of life itself. Jason joined her, standing quietly beside her. "The stars are endless," he said softly. "There is much to learn, much to explore, and you are ready to discover it." Lyrana nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation she had never allowed herself to experience before. She realized that the human had opened a door, not just to knowledge but to a new way of being. She felt exhilaration, excitement, and a deep, unexpected pleasure at the thought of all the lessons yet to come. "You have changed me," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "Not through force, not through challenge, but through guidance, patience, and understanding. I never expected to feel this joy." Jason placed a hand lightly on a console, his expression calm and reassuring. Humans often teach by example. Strength and pleasure are not always found in combat or dominance. They are found in learning, in understanding, and in the connections we form along the way. You have embraced that, and it has transformed you. Lyrana smiled, a genuine expression of contentment and wonder. She had expected confrontation and danger, but what she had found was far richer. A human who had guided her to new heights of understanding, and in doing so, had given her the gift of unexpected pleasure. As the ship continued its journey through the stars, Lyrana felt a deep gratitude. The human had shown her that life could be exhilarating, challenging, and fulfilling without violence. She had discovered strength in knowledge, joy in learning, and pleasure in the mastery of challenges. And she knew that this was only the beginning. For the first time, she looked forward to the future with excitement rather than fear. She had braced for death from the human, expecting the end. Instead, she had discovered a new beginning, a path filled with understanding, mastery, and unexpected pleasure. And as she stood beside Jason, watching the stars stretch endlessly before them, she realized that the universe held infinite possibilities, and that with guidance, patience, and understanding, she could embrace them all. She had faced what she thought would be her death. Instead, she had discovered the true power of life, and the unexpected pleasure that came with it, a pleasure she would carry with her forever. She braced for death from the human, but what came was unexpected pleasure.